Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this graduation. It's a momentous occasion, and I'm really sorry I can't be there with you in person. But I want to congratulate everyone who has been through this program. I know it is not an easy one, and it's been particularly difficult times with COVID and the challenges it has posed, all the things that are going on in the world around us, from climate change to this seeming irreconcilable division between our political parties. It makes it a tough world to go out into. But you now have the tools, the capability, and the understanding of what's at stake and how to make things work. And so for you, this actually should be an extraordinarily exciting time, because in our wonderful country, we're the only ones that can really make the difference, and we can make the difference. We are making the difference right now. You will not be alone. I am a Republican still. Not really, not this kind of Republican, but I grew up in the mode of a Rockefeller Republican. And I believe our country functions best with two center parties, a center left and a center right. And so I continue to fight for that, because third parties are very difficult to get over the finish line when you're talking presidential particularly. But that's not impossible. And this may be the year, or excuse me, in 2 years may be the time for it, this next presidential cycle, because we see for the first time in our history that 50% of registered voters are registered independent. That tells you people are hungry for the center. We know people want to get things done, and you have the tools now that you can help them do that. And it becomes your responsibility, whether you go on to graduate school or get right into the business world. You have the ability and you have the responsibility to educate others, to help them understand how important our democracy is and how fragile it is. It always seems ironic to me as I watch what's happening in Ukraine, where Ukrainians are fighting and dying for some of the for the very abilities that we are now taking for granted and rolling back. The ability to choose your own leaders, the ability to have every vote counted. We now have, I belong to a couple of different groups, one of them called the Renew America Movement. That was started by 150 Republicans, former elected officials, governors, senators, congresspeople, a few who were in office. And our whole purpose was to focus to try to get the Republican Party back to the center. But we rapidly realized that wasn't going to be enough. We just need centrists. We need people who are going to work together, who are going to try to solve the problems and not look at every issue through a partisan prism, but look at it through a policy position. And that's what we are doing. We are publishing the names of those who we call deniers, who are continuing to say the 2020 election was lost, stolen, who say that January 6th was just another day in the office, and who are spouting some of these most extreme and really illogical statements. And so we're putting those out. We published a list of 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats who should be supported. They're the ones who stood up. And I think it's very important for you all to remember that when someone's doing something right, whether you belong to their party or not, shouldn't make a difference. They need to hear what they're doing is right. We got to where we are today because until the very most recent election cycles, only 10% of eligible voters in primaries bothered to vote. That meant you had the most extremes who were picking the candidates for the fall. And then people had exactly the wrong reaction when faced with candidates in congressional elections. They just wiped their hands and only 34% of us vote. And in presidential, we think we've done a great job if we get over 55%. That's just wrong. Our democracy doesn't ask a great deal of us, but it does ask us to pay attention. It does ask us to vote. And then there's another organization, the States United Democracy Center, that I co-chair. And we're dedicated to bringing together secretaries of state, states attorneys general, law enforcement, to protect our democracy, to make our democracy work. And we also have a list of deniers. 2 out of every 3 candidates for governors this year across the country are deniers. That means that they continue to talk about the 2020 election being stolen. They continue to say that January 6th was just patriots doing their regular thing. And we're publishing those, we're getting them out there. We need you to help us. This is the kind of thing you can do. And one of the important things to remember is it starts at home. It starts not just with the family. I don't mean get into a huge fight with family members who are way on the other side, but it means your local elections are critically important. You should know that now. For all your time at Eagleton, you know that. You know the importance of secretaries of states and states attorneys general. Now, for New Jersey, that's not going to have a big impact because we don't elect those people. But we need to hold them accountable. And we need to reach out to people we know in other states to tell them this is something about which you need to care. It's an exciting time when you can make a real difference. I co-chaired something for the Aspen Institute on K-12 education and climate change, because we need to think of it holistically. It's not just the environmental agencies that have a responsibility here. How we redevelop our cities and our towns, what we do with transportation. And in education, it's not just about infusing it into the curriculum. It's also about, let's get the buses. Most of them are diesel. That's one of the largest fleets in the country. Let's move them to electric. When schools need to redo their air handling systems, let's do it in an environmental way. Everybody has a role to play. And again, from your time at Rutgers, I know you know that. And I know right now, as you look at the world, it can be kind of overwhelming and you think, I'm not going to make a difference. But remember, a small group of people is the only thing that's ever made a difference. And if you don't believe that, just look at what happened when Rachel Carson wrote The Silent Spring. That's when we got the environmental movement. Look back over history, the founding of the NAACP, a group of people who came together, and white and black. When it was first started, it was very much a white and black organization to protect the rights of everyone to be able to vote. So now is the time. If you want to make a difference, now is your time to do it. And you can. And there are a lot of people out there who are doing the same thing, who want to do that. Join them. Join them and give support to those in elective office who are doing what you want them to do, whether you belong to their party or not. They're human beings like everyone else. If they don't hear from us, then they figure we don't care or they're doing a great job. Don't let them get away with that if they're not doing what we want them to do. Let's hold them accountable. We need to keep these people accountable. And that's one of the biggest challenges, but it's also something that is absolutely within your purview to do and to make a real difference. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you coming out and now finishing this course of studies. You may be going on to graduate school, as I mentioned earlier, but you have a really good, strong background. And you've shown by persevering through all that you've had to face in this shortened and abbreviated course, that you have that desire, that you have that commitment. So that's a wonderful thing. Enjoy the education, but take it now and really put it to good use. Thank you very much for having asked me to be here.